Welcome back to part 3 of our Unity tutorial, to create a Flappy Bird clone for absolute beginners. In the last part we starting with the game and add some physics and basic controls to it. We also create a pipe system and integrate the movement of the pipes with random pipe height. So if you did not already check that, feel free to check my channel or the description of the video to find it. Otherwise let's start with part 3. In this step, we're diving into logic and UI, specifically, how to track the player's score and display it on the screen. Let's keep things simple but engaging, so anyone can follow along. First up, we need a place to display the score. This is where Unity's UI system comes in. While the score isn't a physical object like the bird or pipes, it still needs a game object in Unity's hierarchy. In the hierarchy, right-click and go to UI Legacy Text. You'll notice it creates a canvas object along with the text. Unity's UI is always part of a canvas. Since UI elements can look different on various devices, let's make sure our canvas is responsive. In the canvas component, find Canvas Scaler and set it to scale with screen size. Set the reference resolution to something like 1920 by 1080. This keeps things nice and sharp. Now, let's position the text. Zoom out in the scene view to locate your UI elements. Move the text to wherever you want the score to be displayed, typically at the top center of the screen. For now, set the text to 0 and increase the font size to something visible, like 40. The score needs to be stored somewhere, and this is where we introduce the Logic Manager. This will handle all high-level logic, including the player's score. In the hierarchy, create an empty game object called Logic Manager. Add a new script to it called Logic Manager Script. We're going to write code that will keep track of the score. Update the UI to reflect the current score. Score is an integer because the score will always be whole numbers. Text score text is a reference to the UI element we created earlier. In Unity, you'll drag your text game object into the script score text field. The add score function increases the score and updates the UI by converting the integer to a string. To increase the score, we want the bird to earn points every time it successfully passes between pipes. For this, we'll use triggers, invisible colliders that detect when something passes through them. Open your pipe prefab. Create a new empty game object inside the prefab, and call it Trigger Pipe. Add a box collider 2D to this new object. This collider will act as the trigger. In the box collider's properties, check is trigger. This ensures the bird can pass through without a physical collision. Now, let's write a script to detect when the bird crosses the pipes. How this works. On trigger enter 2D is a Unity method that runs when something enters a trigger collider. We'll use this to check if the bird passed through. Collision game object. Layer part ensures that only the bird triggers the score increase, using Unity's layer system. At this point, the Logic Manager needs to be connected to the pipe system so it knows when to increase the score. Here's the trick, the Logic Manager exists in the scene, but the pipes are prefabs that spawn during runtime. We'll need to link the Logic Manager via code. To do this, tag the Logic Manager with a custom tag like logic. In the script, we'll use GameObject. Find GameObject with tag to find the Logic Manager and link it dynamically. This code runs when the pipe spawns, finding the Logic Manager and linking its script. Now that we've wired everything together, it's time to test. Hit play in Unity. Every time the bird passes through the pipes, the score should increase by 1. If everything's set up correctly, the score will update instantly on the UI. If the score doesn't update, double-check that the text object is linked in the inspector, and that triggers are working. In this case there seems to be an issue, because the score is not updating. It looks that there is a bug in this part where we check the collision of the bird with the collider between the pipes. There is no layer with the name bird. Just add a layer for the bird and add it to it. Like we did already with the tag for the Logic Manager. Now it looks perfect. The score is increasing while the bird passes the pipes. Yeah. So that is another big step to our own game. We did already the most stuff that we need including the Logic Manager and the UI with our score view. Let's do a little summarize of the stuff in this part. We created a simple text UI to display the score. We also include the Logic Manager. This game object tracks the score and updates the UI. We used a trigger collider to detect when the bird passes between pipes, incrementing the score. We also learned how to link objects and scripts during runtime with tags. That's it for this step. Now you've got a working scoring system. In this step, we'll add a game over screen that appears when the bird crashes into a pipe. We'll also add a button to restart the game. Let's get started. For the Game Over screen, we go to the Canvas Game object and create a new empty game object. Let's rename it to Game Over Screen. Inside this, create a text object for the Game Over message. Next, we'll add a button. You'll find it under Legacy UI. Resize the button however you like, and change the button text to something like Restart. Now, let's set up the Restart button. In the Buttons on Click section, we'll call a function that restarts the game. But before we can do that, we need to create this function. For that, open your logic script and create a new public function called Restart Game. At the top of your script, add using Unity Engine Scene Management, so we can manage our scenes. Inside the function, use Scene Manager. Load scene to reload the current scene. This will restart the game. Now, head back to Unity, select the Restart button, and in the On Click section, add an event. Drag your logic game object into the event field, and from the drop-down, select the Restart Game function. And that's it. Now, when you click the button, the game restarts. Test it out and make sure everything works. Next, we need to make sure the Game Over screen only appears when the bird crashes into a pipe. Let's go back to our logic script and create a new public function called Game Over. Inside, we'll activate the Game Over screen by calling Game Over screen set active true. Don't forget to drag your Game Over screen into the logic script in Unity. Now, let's trigger the Game Over event when the bird hits a pipe. In the bird script, we'll use on collision. Enter 2D to detect a collision. When the bird collides with a pipe, we'll call our Game Over function from the logic script. To do this, inside the collision function, check if the bird hit a pipe, and if it did, trigger Game Over. Let's make a fast check if it's working. For this, we must deactivate the Game Over screen in Unity. Now we can check if it's working. Yes, looks fine. To stop the bird from flapping after it crashes, we'll introduce a Boolean variable called bird is alive. We'll set this to true at the start and change it to false when the bird hits a pipe. Now, in the bird script's update function, check if bird is alive is true before allowing the bird to flap. If the bird is dead, it won't respond to the spacebar anymore. Once everything works, it's time to build the game. Just go to File, Build Settings, and Build. Select a folder to save the game, and Unity will compile everything. You'll have an executable file ready to play. And that's it. Congratulations! You've just built a basic version of Flappy Bird. We covered a lot today, from installing Unity and setting up the interface to coding your bird's movement and spawning challenging obstacles. This is just the beginning of your game development journey. Remember, practice makes perfect. Don't be afraid to experiment with different features, like adding a score counter, implementing a restart button, or even designing new levels. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. If you enjoyed this tutorial and want to learn more about game development, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more beginner-friendly tutorials coming your way. And if you get stuck at any point, leave a comment below, I'm here to help you out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Happy coding!